Welcome to this edition of the Your Weekly Dose of Nonprofit Podcast, the podcast that delivers actionable items you can implement at your organization right away. I'm your host, Ephraim Gopin of 1832 Communications. Today, I'm really happy to have with us a nonprofit digital marketing expert, Jen Frazier. Jen, how you doing today?
I'm pretty good. I'm hanging in there. It's definitely been a rough go on kind of all the fronts, but I am kind of an optimist. So as much as the doom and gloom gets me down in the moment and I suffer at through days, I ultimately kind of bounce back and I try to just sort of be optimistic because that's the work that I do. I feel good and I have a lot of hope, but it's been a particularly rough patch right now recently, but today it's sunny. So I'm going with that.
Good. I'm pretty sure most of the people watching or listening, they totally get it. So let's introduce Jen to our listeners, watchers, and readers. Jen Frazier, founder and president of Firefly Partners, has a lifelong commitment to social good and progressive causes of all flavors. From starting Students for Global Responsibility in high school to chairing Students for Choice at University of Oregon, Jen has been a social activist as long as she can remember. After nearly a decade of tirelessly fighting for reproductive rights at Planned Parenthood Federation of America, Jen started Firefly Partners, a digital agency focused on advancing progressive missions and social impact causes. She brings her deep expertise in digital marketing and unwavering support for social good to the conversations around the intersection of inclusion, digital accessibility, and social impact work. In today's episode, we're going to discuss inclusive and accessible digital design. Let's dive right in. Jen, how do you define inclusive and accessible digital design?
Excellent question. So I actually kind of broaden it a little bit. I think about it as inclusive, accessible, digital, period. It's not just design. So we are talking about how to make digital platforms, experiences, media of all sorts accessible and inclusive. So the accessible part people understand usually is sort of more of like the code and the technical pieces. The inclusive part obviously is a little bit more of the softer side of it. It's sort of the language, the imagery, and they come together in what we call at Firefly a joyful, inclusive, welcoming experience. So we want people to not just sort of technically be able to show up and interact and engage and navigate through the digital landscape. We want folks to feel welcome. We want folks to feel like they belong. We want to create experiences where everybody feels like, oh, I love it. It's good. It's fun to be here. It's not a barrier. I feel like I belong. I hear language. I see people. I see images of folks with my abilities. I belong here. And so it's more than just, we find that a lot of folks focus on the technical as a thing, and that's awesome and great. We call that opening the door. A lot of websites or digital experiences are a lot of just a closed door. When people show up, the digital accessibility is sort of opening that door and saying, oh, you can actually now access. But we talk about inclusive digital as sort of somebody at the door smiling and actually welcoming you in to the experience, not just you kind of show up and there's an open door and you can go in if you want, but really helping organizations really think about how do I create a more welcoming experience where I'm literally there like, no, come on in. We want you here. And so we take it to that level.
Awesome. I love that answer. I love that idea of a welcoming experience. Let's dive in a little bit. Why is design, accessibility, and inclusivity important to a nonprofit's, not only just that welcoming experience, but then the fundraising and marketing that the nonprofit has to do?
Yeah, so there's a few different components to think about. As with most things in life, there's a carrot and a stick. And I really love to lead with the carrot and say, I know most nonprofits are out there doing great work, and many folks are working for different causes and different areas that they believe in across a broad spectrum of basically trying to push, social good forward, trying to make the world a better place, trying to do the right thing. Creating equitable experiences, obviously, and making it as open and broad and accessible is really helping organizations kind of think about how they can kind of walk that forward in the digital space a bit further. I think I've talked to different folks who feel like digital is sort of like the equalizer, because you don't have to think about providing physical accommodations for different people, or everyone can access it and different things. And obviously there's been lots and lots of talk about digital divide, and obviously everybody doesn't have access and all of that. But once you even get access, so putting all of that in equity, there's tons of people working on just digital equity in terms of actually getting to digital spaces, which is a whole need in and of itself. But once you even get into the digital space, we want to make sure that people are understanding it's not an equalizer. It's not an equal playing field. So you actually have to do the work in the digital space to also create more of an equal playing field for people as they show up. Like I said, you can't just, a lot of digital landscapes right now are a closed door. So definitely want to make sure we open that door, because you need to understand, if you're dedicated and excited and really interested in like working on justice, working on equity, doing these things, what does that actually look like in the digital space? So we'll talk about some of the specifics of that in a minute, but that's the first reason. It's just walk that talk, walk it all the way forward, walk it through the digital space. Second thing is, I think it's a misunderstanding that if your organization doesn't specifically work with, say, a blind population, or a population that's dealing with some other sort of disability or any other sort of impairment, it sort of doesn't impact you as an organization. Okay, so that's a giant, like over 26% of the population has some form of a disability. Many disabilities are invisible. And those are obviously some of the most difficult for you as an organization to identify and accommodate, because if somebody has epilepsy or there's sort of seizure disorders, you can't have flashing. There's a million types of things you have to think about ADHD, and how do I make sure that people know where to focus on the screen? Obviously, you need to deal with things like blind, deaf, other major, more known impairments, but there's a whole spectrum. And so 26% of the population, 61 million Americans, are somewhere in that space and more. And I like to also tell people, remind them, if you're an able-bodied person today, awesome, but you're temporarily able-bodied. Just think of it that way. At some point, you will age, you'll be in an accident, like you might come down with a debilitating disease. You have no idea. Right now, it's great that you might be sitting in mostly able-bodied and able-mind, and no major impairments are happening for you. Awesome. But that's likely temporary in your life. So it's not just, oh, there's sort of this other, or these people, or that doesn't impact my organization. Incorrect. You deal with people, you deal with the whole spectrum of people. So you really need to take all this into consideration. So you're literally just leaving people out. And in terms of how you just said, as it impacts the marketing, fundraising, et cetera, you're leaving out potential, people want to be engaged with your cause. And what honestly then speaks to folks is you are literally leaving money on the table. You are just being like, what? There's $3 billion of disposable income there. Don't need it, or whatever. That's obviously a lie. So people have to go, oh, dang, there's this huge impact. I need to pay attention to this. And really, at the end of the day, the stick is it's actually legally required. Right now, it's a federal law. There's Americans with Disabilities Act, the 508 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. You need to actually have your digital conform to the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, which is WCAG for short. If you don't, you actually are open and could be subject to a lawsuit. So there are lawsuits right now from people with disabilities are suing. Right now, they tend to be suing or coming after companies, corporations, where they're not able to access or actively engage in what's happening on that website. So lawsuits are creeping up and saying there's people not able to access and engage in a way that's impairing them, impairing their abilities to function in society. So I hate to do the stick part, but there are lawsuits and they're literally doubling every year. So it's time to sort of get serious about this and pay attention for all the good reasons. And then obviously sort of some of those like, ooh, better get my act together.
Okay. Yes. Co-sign on the entire answer there, 100%.
Yeah.
So today's actionable item, I would appreciate if you could please share with us 4 ways a website can and should be designed for accessibility?
Sure. It's hard to obviously keep it to 4, but I'm going to try my best. And I'm hoping that somehow I have a whole, kind of list of resources, because a lot of this is available online, and you can actually just Google and find ways in which to take your own website. For example, I think the best place to start for organizations is your website. It's the most, visible part of your marketing landscape. It's the biggest, the most engaged, piece. Yes, you have email, and yes, you have social, and I can talk about those, but the principles I'm going to talk about apply pretty broadly across all those different sort of media. So first of all, there's color. Color is a big one. So in order for you to understand what is meeting what I say a lot of shorthand, WCAG is the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. If you Google WCAG, it'll come up with the WWW3 their website, and they'll go through all these guidelines for you, and it's in great detail, but it's a fairly technical site. I prefer to send people sort of like the non-developers out there to sites that can help you look at color contrast. So there's another site called webaim.org that actually has a little color contrast checker, and it'll say, for example, if you put a white piece of white font on a black background, for example, and you have it at 12-point font, at some point, that's going to sort of meet or not meet these guidelines. Is this going to pass or fail of the standard of, is this readable by the average person with some sort of vision impairment? And there's a whole spectrum where you say, okay, different color font against a different color background, and the size of the font. All those things matter, and you can literally take it through you can put in your branding colors, you can put in your fonts, different things, and you can see where you start to fail and where you are passing for. And in the WCAG guidelines, there's A, which is sort of the most sort of loose guidelines, like at the very minimum, please get to A. We like to take people to AA, and there's even a AAA. It's like, woo, gold standard. It's very difficult to get to AAA across a whole website. There's a whole reason, a bunch of technical and other types of things that happen there. But if you can get to at least A and hopefully AA standards, it'll show you the pass fail for your color contrast. So it's font size and color contrast for vision impairment is number one. An easy one that people can do is every image that's on your website, you need to have they have a place to put in alt tags, so alternate text, for a description of that image. So if someone is going through either blind or very visually impaired, and they're going through it with a screen reader, the screen reader will read the descriptive text. If there's no text, they just blank over it. It doesn't even pause. So if you have, and then really this is the difference, is the images need to be sort of impactful to the story that you're telling. So if it's a background image or colors, you can just skip it and don't put a tag in there. In fact, don't put a tag on ones that are sort of just pretty or there for background or other types of purposes, because then that actually adds clutter to a screen reader and to a person trying to gain insight from the content on your site. But if there's an image that adds to the story or is sort of explanatory in some way, create good descriptive text that describes what's happening in that image as it adds to the story of the content on that page. So you go through, there's checkers, really easy to say, all these images don't have any alt text. Just go in and provide those for folks using a screen reader. The other thing, which is, gets a little tricky, but is a high on the bar, is try to navigate your website without using a mouse. So can you tab through the content on your site? So one of the biggest things that you need to be able to do is put in code to help somebody navigating through your website without a mouse. So the biggest thing there is your navigation. So like, if you imagine someone starting to tab through the content on your website, first of all, try it. It's like, you'll be like, it's a totally different experience. But one of the best things you can do is provide code that allows somebody tabbing to skip the navigation. Because think about if they go to then another page on your website and they have to tab through your entire navigation, every single thing in your nav to get through to the content on the page, that creates a very unpleasant user experience. So just, there's different ways to think about it, but think about it. And there are ways in there are guidelines of code about how to put in tabbing through navigation. Also a big one, like how making sure every piece of your nav is tabbable. I think that's a word, tabbable. Sure, we're going to go with it. And the ability to skip the nav if people want to skip, things like that. So, and then, you know, I just also say, take the time to download a free screen reader app and listen to your website. A same thing, skip navigation counts with a screen reader. You can be like, okay, they can just skip past the nav every time, and finding a way to help the screen reader experience be less painful. It's a big one. Those are, I mean, those are the larger populations of like the blind, the deaf, the major, you know, kind of segments of disability. But if you just think about it, you download a free screen reader and then make sure that you're doing the best you can to make it so that folks who are using a screen reader also are able to push past and are able to get through it, like these navigational elements and things like that, to get to the content on your site, but how they navigate through, how the screen reader gets through the navigation so they can find their way through your site. All these things are critical to help folks with different abilities navigate your digital and mostly your website primarily effectively.
Fantastic answer. Lots of good stuff there to have to look at your current site, or if you're building a site, make sure you incorporate all of that.
Yeah.
You, Jen, are a digital marketing expert. So let's talk accessibility and social media. What can I do to ensure that my social media posts are accessible to everyone looking at and reading them?
So some of those same things obviously still apply, but one of the things I see that's probably the biggest is people like to put words on top of and incorporate it into an image. Mm-hmm. And so that's a big no-no for accessibility, because again, like a screen reader can't distinguish. And if you have great alt text, you can sometimes get away with it. But again, for tabbing through or screen reader functionality, try to make your words and your content not an image at the very least. Like just make it basic text and then have your image be separate from your text. Or again, very, very descriptive alt text for any images that actually contain words, but those, we try to separate those two as much as possible. Again, really get back to the color contrasts for your social posts and make sure they look good and pass. And you can just take a whole image and have a web checker come through and say, is this passing or not passing the test? So other things about it are, though, you get out of the technical into your social posts and you get into that sort of more inclusive side of things, and you say, okay, I've done the technical, I've passed all that. But then you really need to think as an organization, what am I doing with my language? Language is a big one. People, the biggest thing we run into as a barrier for folks is people get obviously very stuck in jargon. This is your website too. Please, please, please test with people that aren't inside your organization, that don't know your jargon, and they will immediately flag for you what is nonsensical and what literally doesn't make sense to the average person. We try to really recommend folks put language in that's at 8th grade level. So there are checkers out there as well that can help you go, you need to simplify your sentence structure, simplify the words that you're using. You can still be very effective, get your point across, be engaging, be captivating, be motivating, all these things with simple words, simple sentence structure. And then think about, obviously, the imagery that you're using. The biggest thing I want to stress is diversity is not just color. There's a lot of types of diversity. So really expand your own understanding what the D in DEI means. Diversity is a lot more than color. So really think about how can you show people with different abilities How can you show people with different ethnic backgrounds? How can you show different people with religion, or all the different flavors of diversity? Think about how that shows up in the images, like illustrations, photographs, imagery, all of it. How am I representing a diverse audience? Really think about it, and try really hard to show up differently for different folks and different posts and things like that. So really think about that. Then I would say test is the big one, obviously. And obviously, like I said, like get other folks who are outside of your organization and outside of your, sphere to look at and give feedback on, does this make sense? Is it resonating? Is it clear? And does it actually test and go through on some of these web checkers? As we all know, social media is the least sort of within your control. You can control your website, you can control your email posts to some extent. Obviously, email clients out there in the world are their own beast, and that's a whole different podcast. But social is even less in your control. So you can do the best you can. I would say right now for us, when we're doing social posts, the best we can do is be really thoughtful about the imagery, the language, all those things, and then do very descriptive and lovely alt tags, and then just do your, kind of put it out there. And you kind of have to just say, I'm at the whim of Facebook today or whatever. I can't control everything they do on their side, but I can control what I do on my side.
Awesome. Nope, 1 second. Sorry. Hit the wrong button. Your company, Firefly Partners, helps nonprofits with their digital marketing strategy so they can inspire their audience. A big part of any digital strategy is video. So now that you've discussed all the content and website and social, how can we make videos, whether it's for a social media post or even just a gala event, more accessible and inclusive for all viewers?
So taking into account all those other pieces as you create the video, obviously, number one, provide closed caption on all videos. I like that anyway, because I like to scroll and I just like to see, I like to read the words on videos. So if I'm at a place where I can't actually have the audio on, I like to have that opportunity. It's really nice to be able to provide. So if you're having like a video on your website, let's say, the closed caption is key. The opportunity for people to even download a transcription of it is really a cool opportunity. The other things about navigating a video itself. I know most players all do this, but it's just really critical to allow the user to control. So if they need to pause it, they need to slow it down, if they need to back up, all that's pretty standard. But I've also seen places where videos just go and they just stream and there's no way to stop it, or it's really hard to find where, or they kind of hide the X, of like stop or slow down or hide or all those things. Make it super easy and super obvious. I think that people like to think that like, if I make it really hard for people to close this or stop it, they'll be forced to sit through my video. Well, who wants to force anybody to do anything? I get it. I hear you, marketers, but just really put the control in the user's hands. That's the most critical thing. This same thing kind of applies to if people still have scrolling slides anywhere and things like that. Please, please, please make it very clear and very obvious so people can stop it. Like it's really imperative. This is a lot of this, kind of impairments that are cognitive. It gets, a lot of people get unsettled if you can't be in control of stopping motion. And so that's a big one to think about. So you want to make sure that that's happening in your videos as well. The other thing I would say is be thoughtful about creating the video. Again, just color contrast, even in lighting, when you're making the video, the speakers, the text that's happening in the video. I know if you're in charge of making your own videos, keep the language simple, have people speak slowly, have people use simple language, all that kind of stuff again, and really think about who's in your video. All those types of things come into making the video, and then making the actual play of the video. The biggest thing there is just keeping the control for the user so they can interact with it in the way that is best for them.
Perfect. And we'll now move on to the lightning round. Now that we've talked about inclusivity and accessibility, time to learn more about you.
Okay.
What got you started on your nonprofit career path?
I'd say again, like you had my bio there, I kind of was an activist from birth or something. I'm not quite sure what happened. I came out left and it just happened that way and I kept moving. But I'd say the nonprofit career path happened when I started volunteering at Planned Parenthood after undergrad. And I was like, this is such a great organization. It's so cool. And I just was such a fervent, like pro-choice, like, I mean, all day, all long. So I was like, I want to do this. And so I went to grad school specifically to study policy and women's studies at George Washington in DC, to be also in DC. And I happened to get my dream job. I think it really was like, I'm like, I would love to go to DC, go to grad school and start working at the National Planned Parenthood. And it happened. I think I willed it to happen in the universe, but yeah, and that's how it got started.
That's awesome. Given all your years in the sector, if you could shake up one thing in the nonprofit world, what would it be?
You know, I had a fun time thinking about this question. You put it in front of me, and I have a very weird way to shake up the nonprofit world, which is I really believe that we should have a greater distribution of wealth in this world, for sure, specifically in this country. And I would like to force, I had two ideas. I had like, let's force the top, Fortune 500 companies or whatever to funnel like 1 to 5% of their profit just into nonprofits. Like it has to come in and it has to get distributed in some equitable way, blah, blah, blah. And it just like, you just take that money and it just comes in and it just becomes a part of your operating budget. How amazing would that be? Because ultimately I said, what if the wealth issue could be solved? And what if nonprofits didn't have to like live their lives working for donations? What if we just were able to do the work? Like think just for 5 seconds, like if everyone out there were like, if you didn't have to spend all of your time thinking about how am I going to get that next donation? Like if you were just working on the work, that I want to help feed people. I want to, again, wealth distribution impacts, maybe we wouldn't need as many nonprofits because maybe we'd be able to help poverty and hunger and all these other things. But the causes, like we still need to cure cancer. We still need to work on these various things in the world. We still need to help pets. We still need to blah, blah. But if you weren't thinking every day about, I got to get that next dollar, I got to get that next donor, I got to get that next fundraising thing, like how radical that would be if we just could be like, I have operating budget. Whoa, what? So anyway, that was my I just feel like it's so ingrained in a nonprofit to be like, fundraising, donor, management, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, how would we spend our time if we were talking all the time about fundraising and donors? So that's my radical, crazy, utopia of wealth distribution would be different. I know.
Okay. That's an interesting one. We haven't had that before.
Yeah.
If you could live in one city that isn't Boulder, Colorado, where would it be?
That's a tough one. So I like access to outdoor space, which is why I moved from Washington, DC to Colorado in the first place. And Boulder is a great city for that. But it's actually kind of starting to creep into the area of being too much of a metropolitan experience. And there's so many people who've moved into the Front Range. Trying to go experience the outdoors is becoming painful. So I actually was thinking either there's a little town in Colorado called Salida that I love that is like 15,000 people. So it's probably almost a little too small, but I'm like, you can just go on any bike trail and you can just go and be there. Blah, blah. The downside is they only have a Walmart. So that's like, I don't want to. I'm like, no, I can't shop at Walmart though. So my next best is Flagstaff, Arizona, which I've been to and I love. So those are my two.
Okay, that's fine. Both of those seem great choices.
Yeah.
And you have a knack for being able to put together IKEA furniture. I want to know, how often do you end up with a leftover piece that no one can figure out where it goes?
I'm proud to say never. I have also passed on this magic gene to my son. I will say the only parts that are left over are usually the parts bag, and they usually give you extras, so you're not really being like, oh dang, we missed a thing, like something didn't get put where it was supposed to. My son and I are very methodical, and they give you those instructions step by step, and we've got it down to a science now. We recently redid a bathroom, and I had a vanity he had to put together. He was watching, Stranger Things or something. And he was like sitting there doing it very methodically while he was doing it. Perfect. Got it done. Even while he was engaged in a show, he was like, nailed it. So proud to say we don't have any leftover pieces anymore.
That's one hell of an expertise. I'm impressed. I also know that you like to put together puzzles. What's the favorite puzzle your favorite puzzle that you've put together?
So yeah, I like puzzles of all kinds, but we actually have a puzzle table upstairs in the kitchen area that is there pretty much year round. It's a lot more active in the winter months when we're inside a bit more, but we just did one that was sort of this like cascade prism of colors. And
Cool.
I almost had to throw in the towel. I was like, I'm not sure. And it also had these like crazy goofy pieces that had no real rhyme or reason to them. So you could be like, oh, this one's this way and this way. And so we were like, it sat there, I mean, probably for like 3 months, which is usually I can do a puzzle in like a week tops, but this one was like, and I'll have to say that my other obsession right now is puzzles of like, my son again, and I do the Wordle stuff every day. And so I don't know if you guys are all familiar with like, but there's all sorts of flavors now. There's cool ones if you're into geography that are called global and worldle, and these other ones and phrasal. And also I'm like kind of obsessed with that whole thing right now. So that ends up taking like 30 minutes of my day now. And I'm like, okay, I need to pare back, but I can't help it. I'm kind of addicted into that space.
It's all good. If it makes you think and makes you work a little bit,
Yeah.
It's good for the brain. It's good for the brain.
It is.
Lastly, we will turn the table. You get to ask me one surprise question. I have absolutely no idea what's coming. Go ahead.
Where is your favorite vacation town?
Vegas.
Oh
Now,
my goodness.
I'll start with this. My two favorite cities in North America are Boston and Toronto. And I will go there as often as whenever I visit the US, I will be there in those two cities. But in terms of vacay, I'm going with Vegas. I've been now 4 times, and each time has topped the previous time. I always have a blast. I love Vegas. That's all. Vegas for me is.
What's your favorite? We got a like craps table, roulette. What
I'm a $5 blackjack table. I go in with $50, and if I win something, I win. If I lose, it's $50. I move on. That's it. I'm not a big bettor. I'm more of a people watcher at the tables. That's more fun, and just talking to people you've never met, and just you sit for an hour, have a blast. That's it. That's me.
Yeah. Well, if you're into people watching, I believe Vegas is probably Miami, Vegas. Those are some of the hot spots, like Correct. In the world, like to see the people watching. That's cool. I've only been once, and I'm not a gambler, so I just kind of go.
Oh, I'm not a gambler, but I love Vegas. So for me, Vegas is just so much fun. So that's my favorite vacay spot.
Awesome.
Jen, thank you so much for appearing today on the podcast. I encourage everyone who's listening, watching, or reading to connect with Jen, A, on LinkedIn, and B, you can learn more about her company at fireflypartners.com. Jen, it was a pleasure learning from you today. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
A pleasure. Have a good day.
Thanks.